Welcome back gamers to another JGM gaming video. We're back again with another much requested Ulduar boss video. In today's video I'll be sharing a complete guide on how to deal with Razorscale in Ulduar, including role summaries, Razorscale's abilities, the boss fight itself and the achievements that are available here. First off, a quick bit of lore about Razorscale. The blue proto-drake known as Varanus has been corrupted and twisted by Loken, turning her into a mere shadow of her former self. She now serves as one of the first lines of defense in Ulduar, fused with iron plates by Ignis the Furnace Master, and patrolling the outskirts as Razorscale. Onto the role summaries. There are a few things that everybody should be aware of here. 1. Keep clear of any fiery areas. 2. Don't stand too close to the Dark Rune Sentinels. And 3. If you are not currently tanking, avoid positioning yourself in front of the boss. That'll become clear later. Melee DPS will want to prioritize targeting the Dark Rune Watchers when the boss takes to the air. Ranged DPS will want to prioritize targeting the Dark Rune Sentinels when the boss takes to the air. Onto the tanks now. During the ground phase, have the tanks switch places when the boss has accumulated 2 to 3 stacks of fuse armor. Tank the Dark Rune Sentinels at a distance from the rest of the raid, and ensure that Razorscale is not standing in any fire by positioning her appropriately. As the raid leader, you will want to do one of 5 things, and they are: 1. Alert players who are targeted by Devouring Flame to move out of any fiery areas. 2. Remind the tanks to swap at high stacks of fuse armor if necessary, so that would be between 2 and 3 stacks. They will want to swap. Number 3 is let the group know when Razorscale is about to switch between air and ground phases so that the raid can prepare. Number 4, keep the group informed about which adds are spawning and which ones to prioritize. And finally, number 5, let the group know when the harpoons are ready to be used and specify which player should activate them. On to Razorscale's abilities now. The battle against Razorscale involves 2 phases, an aerial phase and a ground phase. Both phases have some abilities in common, as well as some that are specific to each phase. While in the air phase, the group will also need to deal with Dark Rune Dwarfads that have their own set of abilities, which I'll also go over. During the ground phase, Razorscale's damage output increases significantly, particularly for tanks, requiring more careful use of defensive skills, tank swaps and healing. Abilities that are cast in both phases include Devouring Flame. Razorscale launches a lava bomb at a random player, causing heavy fire damage to anyone within 6 yards of the target, and leaving a patch of fire on the ground that lasts for 25 seconds. Flame Breath. Right before transitioning to the air phase, Razorscale unleashes heavy fire damage on all players in front of her, and that's why the tanks want to tank her facing away from the group. Wing Buffet. At the start of each phase, Razorscale flaps her wings, sending all players within 35 yards flying back. This is used mainly to reset player positions for the upcoming phase. In the air phase, Razorscale will hurl fireballs at her target, dealing moderate fire damage. During the ground phase, she has a few more abilities that are a little bit more dangerous, including Fuse Armor. Razorscale applies a debuff to her current target that reduces their armor, attack speed, and movement speed by 20% for 20 seconds. At 5 stacks, the target will become stunned. This debuff requires 2 tanks to taunt off each other in order to avoid reaching those 5 stacks, and it's therefore a tank swap mechanic. Flame Buffet. Razorscale places a debuff on the raid that significantly increases the fire damage they take, stacking up to 99 times. You'll need to defeat the boss before the debuff becomes too powerful for the group to handle. On to the adds now, the first of which is the Dark Rune Guardian. Their abilities are Storm Strike. The Dark Rune Guardian immediately attacks, applying a debuff to the target that causes them to take 20% more nature damage for 12 seconds. The Dark Rune Sentinel will cast Whirlwind. The Dark Rune Sentinel spins in a whirlwind for 4 seconds, causing heavy physical damage to all players within range. The Dark Rune Watchers have Lightning Bolt. That is their main attack, which deals moderate nature damage to the target, and the damage is increased by Storm Strike. Chain Lightning. The Dark Rune Watchers also use Chain Lightning, which deals moderate nature damage to the first target and bounces to up to a total of 5 targets, with each bounce causing more damage. To prevent the chain lightning from bouncing too many times, try and avoid standing too closely together. Onto the boss fight itself now. The battle against Razorscale can be initiated by speaking to the expedition commander located at the entrance to the boss area. Once the event begins, mole machines will appear, spawning the Dark Iron soldiers that the tanks need to pick up. Razorscale will also be dropping fire on the raid from above. Razorscale begins this fight in the air phase. During this phase, friendly dwarf NPCs will repair the 4 harpoon turrets, and once they've repaired all of them, players can operate them to shoot Razorscale down, triggering the ground phase. In the air phase, Razorscale will use Devouring Flame on random players, causing fire damage and leaving a flame patch on the ground that must be avoided by the raid. These flame patches are clearly visible as blue fire on the ground. Razorscale will also occasionally shoot fireballs at random players, dealing heavy damage. The Dark Rune adds will come in waves, spawned from the mole machines. These adds must be grabbed by the tanks ASAP. The Dark Rune Sentinels should be tanked away from the raid and DPS'd by ranged DPS, as they do a whirlwind attack that hits everybody in melee range. Dark Rune Watchers deal the most damage and should be focused down primarily by the melee DPS, and the Dark Rune Guardians should be tanked but are the least threatening and therefore the last priority to kill. Groups with higher DPS can have all their DPS focus on killing the Dark Rune Sentinels, but this strategy is only effective if the Sentinels can be killed before they use Whirlwind. Before launching the 4th and final harpoon, try to kill as many adds as possible to reduce the number you'll have to deal with during the more difficult ground phase. It's helpful if the raid leader or the player firing the turret calls out that they are doing so that the tanks can be prepared to grab the boss as much as possible. After the final harpoon has been launched, Razorscale will be brought down to the ground and the second ground phase will begin. Your raid will have around 30 seconds before Razorscale breaks free and returns to the air phase. When Razorscale reaches 50% health, she'll be permanently grounded for the remainder of the fight. During the ground phase, adds will no longer spawn, but the remaining adds will need to be killed to prevent them from causing chaos while the boss is still being fought. When the ground phase is ending, Razorscale will cast Flame Breath, dealing damage to everybody in front of her, followed by casting Wing Buffet, knocking everybody within 35 yards away from her. To avoid Flame Breath hitting anyone except the tank, Razorscale must be tanked facing away from the raid. The tanks will also need to move her almost constantly, similar to the Grobulus fight in Nax. This is to ensure that everybody can reach the boss to DPS without standing in the flame patches on the ground. Razorscale will periodically use Fuse Armor on the tank, and once a tank has between 2 and 3 stacks, the off-tank will need to taunt the boss off of them to avoid getting too many stacks. At 5 stacks, the tank will be stunned, unable to avoid any damage, and almost certainly die. Some common issues that can arise during this fight include adds are not killed quickly enough, leading to them overwhelming the raid. Sentinels use Whirlwind on non-tanks, killing them. Players don't pay attention to their feet and stand in Devouring Flame. The ground phase is started without proper communication, resulting in adds being alive during the ground phase, or the tanks fail to tank swap properly, leading to the death of one of the tanks. Onto the achievements that are available from this fight. We have the Siege of Ulduar, defeat the bosses of the siege area in Ulduar. These bosses are Flame Leviathan, Razorscale, Ignis the Furnace Master, and the XT-002 Deconstructor. A quick shave, defeat Razorscale without allowing her to enter the air phase twice. This requires the raid to have enough DPS to reduce her to 50% health during the first ground phase. Iron Dwarf, medium rare, defeat 25 Dark Rune Guardian Dwarves with Razorscale's Flame Breath. This requires the raid to reduce dwarves to low health and then position them in front of Razorscale as she leaves the ground phase. If done correctly, she will use Flame Breath on the adds, killing them. This does not need to be done in a single run and is cumulative across all runs. That's the complete guide on how to beat Razorscale in Ulduar. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel and I'll catch you in the next one.